Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Believe in best.
Tonight on Our News, health officials tout a noticeable decrease in COVID cases. Political leaders take the rally stage. Brentzel Roll defends public service hires, and siblings suffer 2 devastating losses. Welcome to Our News, and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, following an alarming spike in COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and deaths in August, health officials are now touting what they call a noticeable decrease in COVID cases. The country has recorded 11,584 cases and 302 deaths between January 1st and September 12, 2021. COVID deaths peaked during the week of August 22nd with 40 deaths. However, officials say over the last 4 weeks, there has been a decrease in the number of cases. They attributed this to what officials call an aggressive vaccination campaign implemented by the government. Meanwhile, hospitalizations are up, but the ministry predicts that will change as cases continue to decrease. As of Saturday, 186 cases were in hospital. Medical experts fear the effects of campaigning and voting could be felt in another 2 weeks. The ministry advised voters to sanitize their hands before and after voting, wear a mask at all times, and remain physically distant. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis will speak on the current COVID-19 situation tomorrow, and the Ministry of Health will host a news conference next week. As the Free National Movement took its message of a bright future to North Abaco last evening, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis warned residents that the PLP won't deliver. Berthany McDermott reports.
Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis renewed his administration's commitment to rebuilding efforts on Abaco if re-elected, and warned that a Davis-led government would never deliver. Addressing supporters at a drive-in rally in North Abaco, Dr. Minnis said the FNM is the best party to continue Family Island advancements.
The PLP is not the party for the Family Islands. It is not the party for North Abaco. They will promise and promise and promise. But you know, they will never deliver to you.
The FNM leader also implored Abaconians to give Darren Henfield and the FNM another shot. Dr. Minnis also launched an attack on the PLP leader over his representation of Cat Island over the years.
He cannot tell you about any major, meaningful thing he did for his constituency over the last 20 years. If he couldn't do anything for Cat Island for 2 decades, do you think he could or would do anything for North Abaco?
The Prime Minister's address was also packed with a considerable amount of promises he hopes to fulfill if re-elected. He promised infrastructural developments like rebuilding the Treasure Key Primary School, the expansion of Central Pine Subdivision, and an additional 10 homes for those displaced following the storm. The FNM leader said if given another opportunity, his government would accelerate work on that island.
In our new term, we are going to create the Extended Disaster Recovery Program for Abaco. And this program will apply to the hardest hit areas of Abaco.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Progressive Liberal Party leader Philip Davis says there's way too much at stake to have another 5 years of the FNM. During a virtual rally last night, Davis said the past 5 years have been unnecessarily rough and the country deserves better. Kyle Joaquin has the story.
I love this country too much to let the next 5 years look like the last 4. And I think you do too.
Again hitting out at Prime Minister Minnis, saying he lacks compassion and vision to give him another 5 years. He pointed to the millions spent on sidewalks in the middle of a pandemic and a lack of transparency with Hurricane Dorian donations, saying Minnis has not made a good enough case as to why he should be re-elected.
The Prime Minister ran from me when I challenged him to debate me on issues such as these. He's always running away. We're never going to make progress as a country with a leader on the run.
The PLP has not had an in-person or drive-in rally due to the pandemic, only hosting virtual rallies.
All of the Family Island seats are going gold.
Meanwhile, PLP Deputy Leader Chester Cooper says the public is sick of Minnis and called him the worst prime minister the country ever had.
We don't need Minnis and the F&M to deal with any crisis. They are the crisis. We don't need a doctor to solve our problems. The doctor is the problem.
Cooper ripped into the Minnis administration over its handling of the country's finances, from transparency post-Dorian to COVID. Cooper said Minnis has shown disrespect for Bahamians.
This is a man with no respect for you. He got up on a rally stage and told the people he was informed that the F&M won the advance poll. Well, blow me down. Well, who could have informed him of such a thing if the ballots have yet to be counted?
It's full steam ahead for the party as it heads into the final stretch for Election Day. For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Meanwhile, Minister of Public Service Brentzel Roll revealing today that just over 1,200 people who were part of the government's National Job Creation Program have received letters confirming they will be made permanent and pensionable after passing a 12-month probation period. Roll says officials began handing out those letters over the summer.
We made a commitment to young people who joined the program, the National Job Creation Program, that if they performed and did their work, that we would consider them to become permanent. We made that commitment to them when we hired them in the program last summer, and this summer we began the process of engaging them. So I can say that 99.9% of those individuals have now gotten their letters or will get their letters to indicate that they have joined the system and they're placed on 12 months probation.
This confirmation comes 2 days before the next general election. However, the public service minister says it's not a political move.
Just to make sure that no one puts a political spin on it. No politics was involved except the fact that every member of parliament had an opportunity to identify persons from their constituencies who were placed in the various jobs.
Roll was also asked to comment on the recent industrial unrest within the public service.
Unions do what unions do. They perhaps react based on the times. I was active in the union, so I know what the unions do. I have a good relationship with the Public Service Union and other unions. And what I try to do is to work with them to make sure their working conditions were satisfactorily. I said to them from last year that I could not speak specifically on monies, but my duty was to make sure that the environment in which they work is safe and they're comfortable, and that's what we sought to do.
Well, Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar expressing disappointment that the Minnis administration was not able to conclude the sale of the Grand Lucayan Hotel before the end of its term in office.
We soldier on, but we tried very, very hard to get it completed, and I'm sure very shortly, unfortunately, on the other side of this election, we'll get it done, and Freeport will boom once again with all the development that we have planned there, with the new port from Carnival, the new port from Royal Caribbean, and the redevelopment of the hotel.
Last week, Chairman of Lucayan Renewal Holdings, Michael Scott, told Guardian Business that the sale of the Grand Bahama Resort is now up in the air. The government signed a heads of agreement with Royal Caribbean International and ITM Group for the sale and redevelopment of the property and nearby cruise port, and had originally pegged early 2021 for the redevelopment to begin, but the COVID-19 pandemic delayed and changed the terms of the agreement. De Aguilar insists the hotel sale continues to be delayed by the protracted wait for Royal Caribbean ITM to close a separate deal with Freeport Harbor Company.
For whatever reason, that deal is ongoing, and that hasn't been concluded. And as a result, and it's very frustrating, I'm very disappointed that the Freeport Harbor Company and the Royal Caribbean Group were not able to finalize their transaction. As a result, the hotel can't transfer over to the Royal Caribbean Group for them to start doing what it is that they needed to do.
In other news, National Security Minister Marvin Dames assuring voters that COVID-19 protocols will be strictly enforced on Election Day. He also addressed concerns about chaos at some polling stations during the advance poll, promising those challenges will be rectified. Jasmine Brown reports.
The National Security Minister's response came days after it was revealed that those quarantined voters will be participating in the next general election.
Well, you may have quarantine voters among you right here, right now, you know. Quarantine voters all around us, you know. You don't know who they are. Again, you know, our intentions is to ensure that we go into it assuming that every voter is quarantined.
Dames also insists that despite what some may think, provisions have been made to ensure everyone's safety.
It has always been our intentions to treat the environment as if every voter is quarantined. And that's our intentions. I mean, it didn't work perfectly due to the advanced polls, but you can expect some changes coming into the election day.
The National Security Minister says additional steps will be taken to ensure that voters are masked, keeping their distance, and they're sanitized. As it relates to the disorderly scenes that unfolded at some polling stations during the advance poll, Dames says the parliamentary commissioner as well as the Royal Bahamas Police and Defense Forces have gone back to the drawing board and will take additional steps to ensure the process is improved.
You would see any number of those issues that you saw at the advance polls are rectified.
Last week's advance poll got off to a chaotic start at multiple polling stations on New Providence. Lines were long, reminiscent of the 2017 advance poll. Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Mostly sunny skies today. Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center with the latest.
Thanks, Christine, and welcome everybody for your first look at weather. Warm day around the island state. Temperatures managed to get up into the low 90s. Right now we're settling into the mid-80s, 85 outside our studios right now in the partly cloudy skies. We're quality humid. Winds are out of the east at 5 knots, and it feels like temperature in the mid to upper 80s. Satellite view, tropical moisture still across the islands, sparking some showers and some thunderstorms. We do have a low pressure system to the east of the islands, but that should track northwards over the next day or so. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on our news, nurses on Grand Bahama fed up, and 3 children suffer double devastation. Stay with us.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Trade Union Congress President Obie Ferguson strongly suggesting that he is supporting the PLP in the next election, and he's encouraging workers to do the same.
Workers, they don't respect us, but we can make them respect us. So I look forward on the 16th to see the workers doing the right thing.
Ferguson, whose umbrella union signed a memorandum of understanding with the PLP, slammed the Minnis administration's handling of labor issues. And some nurses on Grand Bahama are outraged that they were not paid the full honorarium although they worked in the COVID unit. They're calling on the Minister of Health to rectify the situation. Jillian Gray has that.
15 nurses who work in the COVID unit wing at the Cancer Society site in Grand Bahama say they are outraged that they received the minimal payment for an honorarium given out by the Ministry of Health.
Our Minister of Health had guidelines as to who would be qualified for the full amount of $5,000. And we, this COVID unit, fit that description to the T. So you, the Bahamian public, can see our outrage when we are receiving the same honorarium as the low-risk workers some of which outright refuse to work or come near our doors.
Nurse PCA Kenneth Fowler says nurses feel disappointed after they've slaved for more than a year in harsh conditions. They lay the blame of not receiving the full honorarium at the feet of the heads of the nursing department and administration, who they say should have recommended them for the maximum amount of $5,000.
When the remaining balance that is owed to us will be presented.
Former patient on the ward, Bishop Sobek Camp, says at his darkest moment, the nurses on the ward were a shining light and offered stellar services, something he says should have been rewarded at the highest level.
Give them the full value, because when people are valued, they return that value to us.
As many healthcare workers are opting to leave and work in other countries, Marco City MP Michael Pintard says it's in the Bahamas' best interest that workers get what's due to them. He stood in support of the nurses and said the amounts being discussed are not enough to compensate for the sacrifices.
In support of what I believe is a reasonable request to revisit the list that had been granted, to look at the guidelines and to make sure that we say thank you. That the Cabinet of the Bahamas requested the list to be sent, to have it revised, to include those persons who had made the sacrifices, who were there from day one.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jillian Gray.
Shifting gears, 3 young children are orphaned after their parents died just 2 weeks apart from separate ailments. Jared Higgs tells us more.
The heartbreak felt by 8-year-old Kezia Kerr is clear as day as she speaks about her mother.
He was really good too.
Kezia and her 2 brothers, 11-year-old Jason Jr. and 7-year-old Jathan, lost both their parents in the span of 10 days. Their father, Jason Kerr Sr., died on August 28th after a years-long battle with a cancerous tumor on his kidney and diabetes.
He was a really good man. And they loved him a lot.
Tragedy would strike again on September 7th when the children's mother, Letitia Newbold Kerr, lost her battle with cervical cancer. Her daughter, Johnny Colness, says she thinks her already ill mother was having a difficult time coping with the loss of her husband. While the couple's children found it difficult to convey their feelings in words, their 5-year-old nephew, Tatum Holness, expressed how he felt.
I love her because she loves me, and I know she loves all of us.
This situation is something that nobody plans for. Nobody expects to lose their mother and father 2 weeks apart to 2 separate ailments, but that's the situation that these children and their older sister find themselves in. The older sister stepping up to the plate because she says that's what her mother would have done.
She was a beautiful person. Like I say, she used to help others a lot. She used to do for persons a lot. Even when some persons didn't return the favor.
We spoke to the family at Holness's grandmother's home in Garden Hills. She's hoping now that others will step up and assist her in raising her 3 younger siblings. She has a 5-year-old of her own and was in Canada doing a hairstyling course when her mother died. The reality is she isn't prepared to raise 3 more children.
She loved her children, and she made sure everything was all right. So now I have to fill her shoes.
Reporting for our news, I am Jared Higgs.
Thanks, Jared. Up next, what a former PM didn't say about the F&M is raising eyebrows, and Maxine Seymour makes her case to Seabreeze voters. Find out more after this.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
This is our news. Welcome back. 4 years ago, just days after Dr. Hubert Minnis and the Free National Movement secured the 2017 general election, a political analyst predicted that the Minnis administration would face challenges. But how is this administration faring now?
The Bahamian people are impatient, they are vigilant, they want it now, and if you don't deliver, then they're going to tell you, well, it's time for you to go.
Now, just 2 days out from the next general election, our news caught up with political analyst Philip Galanis to see how much has changed since then.
I think what happened is that with a win, with a success at the polls last time, it was very difficult for anyone to challenge a sitting leader, the Prime Minister.
Over the years, Dr. Minnis has faced challenges to his leadership from within the party, including a challenge from former Long Island MP Loretta Butler Turner and Dr. Dwayne Sands, who ran as her deputy during a party convention. Recently, former Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham stepped up in support of Sands as a candidate running for re-election.
For Mr. Ingraham to say what he did speaks volumes about his confidence in the current Prime Minister. I think it's lacking. I think it's non-existent. I think he's really been very disappointed by the manner in which the current Prime Minister has conducted the affairs of state. And what you've seen by his pronouncements is really an indictment on his leadership and the Prime Ministership.
Well, 2 days before the general election, candidates are working harder than ever to secure a win. Kyle Joaquin caught up with political newcomer Maxine Seymour as she campaigned in this edition of Meet the Candidate.
And so I've been walking Seabreeze in and out and, getting in shape, Kyle.
Meet Maxine Seymour. Brimming with energy, she's making her way through the final 48 hours and hopes to emerge victorious as the next Member of Parliament for Seabreeze.
I wanted to make a difference in my country at a national level, and so that's a journey that I've been preparing for because I believe in preparation.
And that's what she did. The wife, mother, and consummate businesswoman has made quite the name for herself in the field of corporate communications and marketing. But now it's boots on the ground for her in Seabreeze.
So it is a lot of ground to cover, and some 5,700 plus persons on the register, but I've managed to connect with so many people and to talk through, what their concerns are and really to listen to them.
Walking through the area with her, Seymour says she's really been getting a feel for what it is the people of this area need. High on that list, accessibility to their representative and public transportation. But Seymour's entry into frontline politics is a bit bittersweet for her, as she's missing one person who she wished would have been here to see it all. Her mentor of 26 years, the late Theresa Moxie Ingram.
It's surreal for me that she's not here, and I would have thought that when I entered frontline that she would have been here by my side, managing the campaign, giving me guidance. But like her daughter told me, whatever it is that we need, she's already planted inside of us.
And now it's full steam ahead to Election Day. As Seabreeze residents head to the polls, here's what she wants them to remember.
If they're looking for someone who will listen to them, who will make their plans a priority, represent their views, serve according to what their interests are, and prioritize their needs, then Seymour for Seabreeze is the way to vote.
With this edition of Meet the Candidate for Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual funds in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
Up next, what will weather look like on Election Day? Stay with us.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back to our news. Some passing showers ahead, but how does it look on Election Day? Greg is back in the Weather Center.
Thanks again, Christina. Welcome back, everybody, for your second look at weather. Still tracking the tropics as we are watching three systems out there. We are still watching Nicholas, which is a tropical storm moving into Texas. Some showers and thunderstorms associated with that system will continue to spread northwards, but the system is expected to weaken over the next couple of days. To the east of the Bahamas, the National Hurricane Center watching an area of low pressure developing, giving that a very high chance for formation. It should track to the north, but its close proximity to the Bahamas will lend us some showers and thunderstorms over the next couple of days. And further east into the open Atlantic, well east of us, National Hurricane Center watching another area that has a very high chance for formation over the next couple of days. We will watch this one closely as it is expected to move towards the west-northwest over the next several days. Boating forecast for all areas, actually for the northwest and central Bahamas tonight, the winds will be variable at 5 to 10 knots, seas running 1 to 3 feet over the ocean, while in the southeast Bahamas, east to southeasterly flow 10 to 15 knots continues, seas running 2 to 4 feet over the ocean. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Sunday. That's a look at our weather. Have a safe Tuesday night, everybody. Christina.
Thanks, Greg, and thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Christina Dragovich. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.